First, I really want to thank the Oakmont Symposium. It's been years since I would see people at a dinner or an event, and they would say, "You need to talk at the symposium." But it finally happened. I think every time we connected, something big or small would happen, and I'm thrilled to be here. I'm sort of a frequent flyer at Oakmont, and I think that's how I came to be here this time. I know there are a number of you out there who invited me to the dog club last fall. I'd love to come back again. Still trying to hook up with that cat group I hear about. I am, as many of you know, deeply engaged with the fire safe and fire-wise communities and organizations. I was honored to be asked to write the draft language for animals in disasters that was included in our countywide Community Wildfire Protection Plan, our CWPP. It's just really great to be here. I know, little housekeeping. So, although you're going to hear me talk about being a first responder and deployments in the field, that is all behind me because in the last year or so, my lifelong struggle with vision has taken a new turn, and my vision is rapidly deteriorating. Usually wherever I go and I'm talking to seniors, which is how I spend a lot of my time these days, there are people in the room who get it. So I'm still recalibrating everything. I cannot see you, let alone your faces. So I'm not going to have you raise your hands for anything. After my talk, if you have questions, and we're going to hold everything till the very end, okay? I know you're accustomed to that. Then just raise your hand, and one of the awesome symposium volunteers will recognize you, get the mic to you, and you can ask your question. Also, I don't read my slides. I can't see them most of the time. So I really know my material and I can go on and on and on. I know somebody from the dog club said, yeah, we couldn't shut you up, which is usually the problem. So it's wonderful to have quite a bit of time to speak. I'm going to ask one of the volunteers in my part one to tell me when I've gone on for about 15 minutes, okay? And that'll help me gauge where I'm at. Sometimes I may be talking about something that doesn't match what's on my slide. Just go with it, okay? Just like, we'll get there. So having said all that, I want to make sure that if you did not pick up a folder that looked like this when you came in, don't worry, I have lots, but I will tell you that much of what I'm going to cover is in this. I want to make sure that everybody takes at least one of these home with them, and more than one, because I'm going to ask you right now to clap your hands if you are a pet owner, know someone who's a pet owner. And pets in this context can include the little critters, the big critters, the backyard farm animals, all of them. So if you or someone you know, or someone related to you, or someone in your block, or anybody in your sphere has a pet, will you clap your hands? Clap your hands if none of the above applies. That's what I thought. Okay. All right. So that's good because it means that you'll get the next thing I'm going to say. So I know that Oakmont is a very, very prepared place. I know it because we have a home here that a very dear friend lives in. I know it because I have the opportunity to come and be here with Oakmont residents several times a year. And I'm engaged with a number of the preparedness organizations like Meet Your Neighbors and COPE and FireWise and FireSafe and Oakmont Emergency Preparedness. But we can always learn something more. We can always do better. And at our age, we can all do with reminders, right? Okay. And if we don't remember to do something, usually our pets will remind us for us. So having said all that, let's just launch right into things. This is also a new format for me, doing this on Zoom. So I'm trying not to touch my iPad here. So let's see. So Jeff, I want us to be on that slide. Oh, here we are. Okay. So this talk is actually called Your Pet Prep Playbook. Okay, we're getting into football season. You know, I kind of go with it. Last year, the Niners went to the Super Bowl. So, right, yeah. So, or almost, I forget. Anyway, it's football season. We have a lot of sports fans. So, a playbook, I think, is a great way to think about the things that we need to include in our emergency plans. And one of the things I often say when I have my 5 to 7 minutes at most emergency prep presentations, because that's how much they give to the animals, is everything you do for yourself, you need to do for your animals. But I also will flip it to remind animal owners who are often better prepared than their non-animal owning neighbors that everything you do for your animals, you need to do for yourself. Because if we're not safe, they're not safe. Now, why do I have this slide up there that says beyond the go bag? Because when I talk to groups at Oakmont and just about anywhere else in our community in Sonoma County or the North Bay, the very first thing that somebody comes up to me and says is, oh, I have my go bag. I'm all set to go. And I say, great. That's a great start. Now, what about the rest of the plan? Next thing I hear is, well, my dog never leaves my sight. Now, we won't talk about cats. I'm a cat person. It's a whole other thing. We'll go into that world a little while. But my dog never leaves me. Okay, that definitely increases your comfort level. But what if you're not home? What if your buddy network is not on the same page as your pets or vice versa? What if something doesn't quite go to plan if that is your plan A? And that is the kind of thing that I'm here to talk about. It's going beyond the go bag. I'm actually not really going to talk about what's in your go bag. If you have questions about things to put in your go bag, hold them till after, but I will tell you that this packet contains a great list of items that you should include in your animal go kits. We're going to talk about the things that I feel are really most important. So having said all that, it's all about strategizing. It's all about planning. One of the things I love about speaking to Oakmont groups is this is an educated community. Almost every person I meet when I talk at Oakmont is a professional of some kind, often with many letter combinations after your names. So you're smart people. You are a great audience. So here is an expectation that I'm going to put on you. I'm kind of preaching to the choir. That's why you're here on a Sunday morning. You want to talk more about prep, right? Who does that? Clearly not a whole lot of your neighbors. But we are not getting younger. People are constantly coming and going in our communities. Our kids, our grandkids, they've got busy lives. They've got a lot on their minds. Everybody can do better. The brain power and the energy and often the time that can be harnessed here at Oakmont to get this information out into not just your community, your peers, but beyond that, to your family, to your friends, to your people in your in your social groups in other areas. That is why I started the Halter Project. So let me go into that a little bit more here. Kathy kind of covered it. We are all about the 3 Ps, okay? Planning, preparing, practicing. You don't often hear people talk about preparedness in those terms. I talk about it that way because I know for a fact that people often confuse the concept of planning and preparing and practicing, and they kind of all roll it into one. So I like this idea of the 3 Ps. So how did I get to this point? Well, next slide is going to tell you a little bit more about the Halter Project. So Kathy did a good job, but here's just a little bit more information. Yeah, I've lived here in Sonoma Valley, in Sonoma County for over 40 years. A lot of you know I live on a ranch in right between Glen Ellen and Kenwood on Highway 12. And I was a serial entrepreneur. I did a lot of things. I had a business and a home in San Francisco. During the Loma Prieta earthquake, I was about 2 miles from the epicenter. I was in the city. I could not get to my home in downtown Sonoma where all my pets were. So I learned very early on the value of having a buddy system, something we're going to talk about a little bit later. Um, in 2013, I started the Halter project for real because I started getting really worried about all of the flammable stuff around me. I love history on an amateur level. I had been doing a lot of reading about the historic fires that we had in our area. I realized, oh, there's been a fire that burned through my ranch twice in the last 90 years. Of course, real estate people don't tell you that. Oh, any realtors in the room, I actually, have been putting it out there to realtors. I think that the real estate industry has a real responsibility to inform people. And I personally feel that every time you sell a house, the owners, that they have pets, should get one of these. But that's a story for a different day. So I started looking around to try to find out things like, what do you put in your go kit? What do you put in your animal emergency supplies? How do you know if you should evacuate and go somewhere? What do you do if another earthquake hits? And I am a child of the 50s, so we always had earthquake drills in school. I remember that. Um, and it was really hard to get information, like really hard. There basically wasn't much for people in our area, and there was even less for animals. However, I was blessed. I had a lot of friends who were educators at major teaching institutions around the country, and a few in Australia and New Zealand, who were all emergency management professionals who happened to love animals. Some of them were veterinarians. And so I learned a lot from them. And I said, so how do I find out if my area, if my community, if my county has these kinds of resources? And they said, well, if you're not finding them, they probably don't exist. And that's why you were put here on earth, Julie, and we're going to help you do it. So I joke that if I had known how hard it would be to do that here in Sonoma County, I would have started somewhere else, not in the county that I live in. But I got really good at kind of putting on my mental hard hat because I was banging my head against a lot of concrete walls and steel-clad doors and getting a lot of pushback. But my friends in high places in the veterinary world said, don't worry, you need to do this. We're going to help you do this. So I always joke that they kind of dumped me in headfirst in the deep end, but then said, don't worry, we won't let you drown. And that's kind of the way it's been ever since. So that was 2013. In 2014, I started producing a bunch of really cool events called Home and Ranch Readiness Day. They were really well attended elsewhere. Didn't get a whole lot of love here in Sonoma County. It's kind of a recurring theme with preparedness, but it did capture the attention of a number of global agencies and national organizations and FEMA. One of the things that we were doing, and this was super fun, is we did start a program right here in Sonoma Valley, kind of focusing on our volunteer fire departments that taught firefighters how to be around large animals like horses and mules and donkeys and cattle safely with relative safety, and also how to rescue them when they get into accidents. So this is not disaster prep or disaster response. It's the everyday emergency. Animals get stuck, they lie down and they can't get up. Unfortunate transportation accidents happen. People get into accidents riding trails. So that was a super fun thing. And it got me really engaged with our local firefighters, other first responders like sheriff's deputies, they were really into it. And they encouraged me to keep going and trying to help our community be better prepared, both personally and for their animals. And that is what gained the attention of FEMA. And in 2016, we were invited to Washington, D.C., my one assistant and I, where we were guests at the White House and we were guests of FEMA. We actually got to sit in the National Emergency Operations Center, so the place where hurricanes and tornadoes and things like that, where the response is managed, where we were the guests and they were asking us as subject matter experts for our expertise and our ideas. And so that was really quite an experience. It opened a lot of doors. Funny story about Sonoma. The FEMA press secretary was really frustrated because he could not get the local Sonoma Valley media to do a story or participate in a live interview. Why? Because it wasn't happening in Sonoma. That's our community. But I'm glad to say that in a lot of other places, it did really help and open a lot of doors for us. And it got us into contact with many, many great resources who, again, supported us, mentored me, provided me with great education, resources, tools to help our community. And so that was encouraging. It kept me going. In 2016 also, I quit my day job. I folded my event planning and design business so that I could focus on preparedness for animals and their people in emergencies and disasters full time. Halter Project is not a nonprofit. Most people in the neighborhood think that we are. Thank you to all of you who continually try to give me money. We are a privately funded, unaffiliated program. So we're free agents. We're not tied to an agency, not encumbered by a board. We're able to be very nimble and do a lot of things quickly that we would not be able to do otherwise. We provide small grants and other kinds of monetary and in-kind support to local fire departments, sheriff search and rescue, animal welfare organizations, and other community groups who support not only animals, but the people who own them. Because again, if we're not taking care of our people, we can't take care of our animals either. So that's a bit more about me, about the Halter Project, who we are and what we do. So how does all this relate to why I am here talking to you today? Well, that was then. Fast forward a few years to 2017. So I know a number of you stopped by my poster version of this as you came in. Where I live is at the corner of Highway 12 and Nuns Canyon Road. So usually in our area, when I say that, I hear yeah, right. So on the night of October 8th, 2017, the fire started about 400 yards from my back door, not on my property, I'm happy to say, but on a county road nearby, Nuns Canyon Road. And as all of you, I'm sure, know, the fire was on us and everyone else before our responders knew there was a fire. In our case, our ranch is in a really weird microclimate right at the foot of that ridge, so we frequently get really high winds. We know, because we have monitors throughout our vineyard, that we did have winds that night that were between 82 and 96 miles an hour. So one of those metrics that they kept talking about on the news, that information came from a little weather station in my front yard, basically. And so I had at that time 7 horses, a mule, all at home, 7 horses, a mule, 3 cats. 2 of them were house cats. 1 of them was a barn cat, so 2 separate parts of my property. And when the stuff really started hitting the fan, I was in the house. My husband was fast asleep in his recliner. I could not wake him up. That's a whole other story. But I will tell you this. we were able to get with, oh, and I had two other people, a couple who live on our ranch across the highway, the part of our ranch that is between Dunbar Road and Highway 12, that little point there where the taco truck is. So I had three people plus myself, one of whom was my sound asleep husband. I had the 7 horses, the 1 mule, and the 3 cats in 2 different places. But because I had, oh, and the wind was blowing 80 to 90 miles an hour, and what it was blowing down on us were firebrands. Everything coming down on us was burning. My husband had always poo-pooed the concept of firebrands and ember cast, and now he talks about it. He tells people about firebrands. So thank you, Mother Nature. We got everybody evacuated to a safe place on our ranch in 7 minutes. I know this because of the text messages that I had on my phone and communications I had with some of the neighbors. All our escape routes were cut off. There was no way out our driveway. There was no way up or down Nuns Canyon. There was certainly no way in either direction on Highway 12. A lot of you know that who were living here in Oakmont at that time. So it was really, really scary. I was really scared, but here's the clincher, and here's the part I want you to remember, and here's why I'm talking so long about how long I've been doing it and how much mentorship I had, and the importance of those 3 Ps: plan, prepare, practice, in that sequence. Because that is why I was able to do what we did. We do have a business. We do have OSHA trainings. We do have employee staff trainings. They don't go into that much detail, but we had talked about what we would do in an earthquake. We talked about various types of, kind of loosely talked about fire, you know, what we would do in a fire. And our plan was always, oh, well, we're going to know there's a fire. We're going to load everybody up and we're going to get out of Dodge. We had none of those options. Why were we able to do what we did? Because we had planned, we had prepared. We learned immediately afterward how much better prepared we could be, and now we are, and there's still things we know we can do better. But more importantly, we had practiced. We talked about it. I had done things with my animals. A little bit of luck was involved, but we got everybody out. And so this brings us finally to a new slide. Oh, did we cover this one? Or this? Oh, yeah, there we go. Here we go. Okay, so the importance of having a plan, your playbook. Everything that's in this blue folder is information that you need to study, and you need to create a written plan. And in that blue folder is this. It's usually the last page. We have some newer and some older versions. This is your animal emergency action plan. On the back side of the same piece of paper is an animal advanced medical care directive. So an advanced veterinary care directive for your pets, for your animals, and your horse, Lynn. And it's in this blue folder. So what kind of a plan? How do you plan for what type of incident? There's an easy answer to that, because you're going to have a plan for everything that might happen. Why were we able to get everybody to a safe place when we hadn't ever really planned for what do we do if all escape routes are cut off in a fire and stuff is raining down on us at 90 miles an hour and it's all on fire? Well, because we had an earthquake plan. You know, we drill for earthquakes frequently because we do have a business, and I had an event business. And so I constantly had to have staff trainings. What do I do if I have 150 people at an event and an earthquake happens? Because that's what we were most of the time worried about. So our plan A, which was to evacuate off the ranch, that was out the door. Our plan B, which was to have other people come and help us, no way that was going to happen. So our plan kind of C, D was you have a meetup place after an earthquake, right? Where everybody is going to go to that pre-designated safe place and check in. You're going to check in person. You're going to check in on the radio. If you're using radios, maybe you've got cell service and you might be able to check in that way. But the best is that you're going to go to that safe place and you're going to check in. The county has now taken that check-in concept and they've elevated it to where we now have temporary evacuation points, or TEPs. I'm not going to go into that too much today, but if you are evacuating during an evacuation order or possibly under a warning, you may be directed to go first to a temporary evacuation point. But it's that check-in place where you can personally make sure that everybody in your circle, on your block, in your family, whatever, is safe. And that's what we did. So our safe place on our ranch was, actually I skipped, sorry. When you, Jeff, can we go back to that slide? Sorry. I do this, bear with me. I get carried away. That's okay. Oh, there we go. So our safe place, I didn't really tell you what was going on here other than the fire, because I don't like causing people PTSD either. So our safe place was our arena, our covered arena. And so down here on the, so in the upper right, that is my pasture exactly 1 week before the fire with the horses that were in it. And there's another pasture on the other side. If you go down to the lower left, the photo that is all bright red, I'm sure many of you know what that is. So that was the view of that pasture from my arena. That's what it looked like. The next couple of photos are from inside the arena. That's where we threw everybody. We threw all of the large animals, and I also put the cats in their carriers in the arena with the horses and the mule, because I wanted to have my eyes. That was my check-in. We're all safe. All the people are safe. I want to know where all the critters are. I want to be able to see them. Wasn't such a good plan for the animals. Tactical error. I put the house cats in their carriers right next to the barn cat in his carriers. Those cats didn't really know each other. And they did not like it. They were not happy. And they let me know. But on a scale of 1 to 10, if that's the most stressful thing that happened to everybody, we're doing pretty well, right? And now I know, don't do that. And as soon as I had a moment to catch my breath, I did move them. I separated them and I grabbed some things that I had to cover them up, which is a really important part of what you should have in your supplies. And I was able to throw some tarps. I didn't have any nice blankets like this, but I threw tarps and sheets over and drop cloths over their carriers. So, and I separated them so that they had some privacy and they immediately stopped making a lot of noise. The horses were fine. We eventually gave them food. Everybody was happy. My mule, interesting thing about mules and other long-eared equids, she stood there and she watched her shelter burning. That's the red glow that you see in the middle photo, for about 5 hours. She never moved. I couldn't get her to eat or drink. She just watched it burning. Difference between horses and mules. It's like cats and dogs. I won't say one is smarter than the other, but there is a theory. So we were able to do it because we had a plan for everything. Now we can go back to that plan for everything slide. Okay. So the importance of having a plan for everything that might happen, every kind of severe weather, fire, earthquake, weather watch, prolonged power outage, pandemic, a whole other thing we had to learn about. So all of that needs to be addressed when you create your emergency action plan. Advanced medical care directive, not everybody wants to do this. Some people get it right away. Some people don't want to do it. That's up to you. But the written plan is really important. Now, where do you put your plan? This is a question I'm asked all the time. So one plan stays with you. It stays with your grab and go stuff, that bag that's always ready in the hall closet or by the front door or in your car that has all of your important emergency documents. Another copy should be somewhere in your home where somebody could find it. So it could be in a binder, it could be in a Ziploc, it could be in one of these little, zipper plastic things you can get at Staples, just as long as it's really easy to find and you can tell someone in about 5 words, yeah, the plan for my animals is in the drawer next to the dishwasher or something like that, right? It's also a really good idea to have something like this in your house, posted where responders can find it. Now, here's another thing about disaster planning. If you are prepared to keep your pet safe during and after a disaster, you're going to be so much better off when those everyday emergencies happen. Because those are the things that really get us, right? We plan for the disaster, the really big thing that may or may not ever happen. But emergencies, sadly, are part of life. And when you trip taking out the garbage, or your dog pulls you off your bike or trips you on your way to the bathroom, and our wonderful paramedics are hauling you out to the ER, you want to make sure that somebody's going to take care of your pets. So this is the pet version of a file of life. So how many people here have a personal file of life, that magnetic pouch or something that sticks to your refrigerator? Right. So I talked to some people earlier who weren't familiar with those. So talk to your emergency committee, give me a call. City of Santa Rosa police often gives them out. You can get them online also. Our county often gives them out at events. But that has emergency information about you. You know, we've all gotten kind of lazy. It's in our phones, right? Maybe it's in our wallets. Back in the day, you know, the importance of having that information on our person was stress. But now, you know, we have the bracelets. We've gotten away from that a little bit because of digital technology. But it's really important to include information about who to call in an emergency that happens to you. You're not able to take care of your pet. You're not able to tell someone. Maybe the pet is hiding under the bed and nobody knows they're there. So this is emergency information that responders can look at so that your pet gets to go to a place, hopefully other than the emergency shelter, right? And by the way, trying to keep animals out of emergency shelters is one of our really, really big goals. We try to emphasize the importance of that at all costs. A little bit more about that later. So you're going to keep a copy with your stuff, a copy in the house. You're going to give several copies of this plan to your pet emergency helpers, your buddy network, those people who know you, who know your pets. They could be people who live inside your evacuation zone right here in Oakmont, on the same block, on the other side of the community, who can get to your pets in a hurry if you're not home or need help. They should also include those people who are going to be your destinations, those friends, relatives, others who will welcome you and your animals if you need to evacuate, because having alternatives to emergency shelters is a huge, huge part of your playbook strategy. And it's a really techie group, I know. So make sure that along with all of your important documents, you also have your animal emergency plan and any other vet records, the advanced care directive, anything else that's important about your animals stored electronically. Put it on that flash drive with all of your other stuff. Make sure it's backed up in the cloud. So the takeaway is just like have a plan for everything, have more than one way to keep it, have more than one place to go, have more than one way to get there, have definitely more than one person to help you. Redundancy is a key part of planning for emergencies. It's a huge part of our infrastructure for planning for disasters, and it should be part of yours. Okay, enough said. Next slide. What do we have next? I think we're going to talk about supplies.
Okay, Julie, we want to go for about another 25 minutes.
Okay, all right. So I really need to speed it up. Always happens, so you can't shut me up. Okay, so about shelters. Again, want to stay out of them. Sooner or later, everybody is going to get sick, including the humans. Keep in mind, see that little yellow box? Keep in mind that emergency shelters, especially for the animals, may not be opened up and activated until the disaster is declared. That's too late. You want to be long gone, and we're going to talk about that soon. So again, have alternatives. And on my next slide, this one right here. Sorry, on that slide, this is a new thing I just added for Oakmont. These are all great resources, so great places to find out about pet friendly hotels, VRBOs, campgrounds. So good information to include in your emergency plan. Okay, next. Who is next? Oh, this is the slide. Sorry, new slide. So you can take a picture of this. If you want this information, we'll be making it available after the presentation. Really good resources. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers is my prompt to remind all of you of the importance of knowing your neighbor, taking care of one another, and that all important buddy system that I just referenced a few minutes ago. So it really, really makes a difference. I'm sure many of you can share stories about how a neighbor helped you, how your grandkid helped you. Somebody helped you. And just think about the importance of having people that your pets are comfortable with and people that you can practice with. So the third P in our strategy, practice, practice, practice. Practice in all kinds of conditions, not just on a beautiful blue sky day. Practice at night. Practice wearing your headlamp, using the red filter so that you don't blind your pet. Practice when it's windy and raining and stormy, and practice with each other's animals so they get used to doing things for other people. So next slide. My eyes start to give out. Supplies. I promised you I wasn't going to dwell on this, and I'm not. So a couple of important things to remember. Your go supplies should tide you through at least a week, preferably 2. Your long stay or shelter in place supplies should be enough to get you through a month, which is a lot, but it's not if you form a buying group or a neighborhood group or a group with your emergency buddies and you buy in bulk, you divvy it up, you figure out whose cat likes the same cat litter as yours, whose dog likes the same kibble or wet food. So you buy together, you divvy it up, you figure out good places to store it. And then when the time changes, like today, you're going to rotate everything. Now, in addition to what you need to go for 1 to 2 weeks and what you need to stay, ideally for a month, you also need to add at least 1 additional dose of parasite control for every pet. Because as we've learned the hard way, supply chain issues can happen, and we know from experience what it's like during and after a disaster. We also know that after a fire, there is a flea explosion. So make sure that your guys are protected. Okay, enough about supplies, because I know you already have your Go kits and they're all refreshed and you rotated them yesterday before the time change, right? So when to plan, when to prepare, and when to go. How many people in the room think because it just rained, we are out of fire season? Just give me a quick clap if you think that's true. How many people in the room know that as of today, we are once again in a period of elevated fire danger through Thursday? Are you aware of that? All right, Bravo National Weather Service, not Bravo elevated fire danger, right? So this is important, whether we are looking at fire weather, storm weather, flash flooding, which is something fortunately you don't have to worry about on your side of the mountain, but we have to worry about it on our side because we live on a creek and a canyon. Here's the key. The time to plan is year round. The time to prep is during those weather watch days. So it's a watch, right? We're watching it. It's out there. It could come here. We might get it. We might not. It's what they think of the hurricane cone, right? We're watching, watching, watching. The time to practice and be ready to go is during those weather warning days. And that includes our red flags and our severe storm or flash flood warnings. So really, really important. I have a poster. I know some of you already picked it up. It's laminated. I only brought a few. If you would like one, get in touch with me and I'll get you one that you can put up in your community room or your laundry room or any place that people congregate. And it's a checklist. It's a prompt. This does not replace your plan, but it's a reminder, and it's also a way to communicate to people who may not be as prepared as you, and maybe they'll kind of get the message. But I'm really hoping that all of you will be more proactive as ambassadors and help communicate that message. So plan, prepare, practice. That message, that strategy aligns perfectly with National Weather Service information. So alerts include weather watches, weather warnings, and then sometimes those weather warnings roll into an actual Department of Emergency Management evacuation warning, advisory, or order. Clap if you know the difference between an evacuation order. No, if you do not know the difference between an evacuation order and an evacuation warning, let me know by clapping. Yay, yay, Oakmont. Okay. So anybody here think it's a good time to evacuate when they tell you, or that you want to wait to evacuate when they tell you to go now? No. Do not wait for somebody to tell you it's time to go. We are grown-ups. We have moved beyond that, and it's our job to convey that information to all the other people around us. When you have large animals, and I know there's one person in the room who does, our information goes a step further. The time to evacuate with your large animals, or if you have a bad knee, any part of your body has been replaced and could slow you down, or you are partnered up with somebody else who is, the time to go is during that weather warning, okay? Do not wait for the bad stuff to happen, because we all know here in this room and in this community just how quickly an evacuation warning can roll into an order, or we may get that evacuation order without a warning. And we've all lived recently, just in the last 4 or 5 years, through those situations. And it happens in flood and storm environments with great frequency. So next, I think I'm losing my headset here. Okay, quick note about earthquake. We don't have to worry about tsunami here, but I do navigate around places where we do. So in an earthquake, okay, if your pet is sitting on your lap, let's see, here's somebody right here. If your pet is sitting on your lap when the shaking happens, do not try to hold him. Oh, am I losing my headset? No. What do we do when there's an earthquake? Yell it out. Stop, drop, take cover. If you're in a wheelchair or a walker, what do you do then? Well, you do that after you've done all the other things. Someone said pray. No, if you're in a wheelchair or using a walker, it's stop, lock, and hold on. And then also if you're in bed, try to cover your head, just try to protect your head. So don't try to hold on to your pet. You will become a casualty. In most cases, your pet will have already launched, especially if you have cats. In 2014, the South Napa fire, I had a little 3-legged cat, a little tripod kitty, and she was sleeping next to me. And all of a sudden, she jumped straight up, did a 3-point landing on my chest, and then took off. Moments later, the shaking started. So she knew something was up. Your pet is going to stop, drop, and take cover. Probably not be holding on unless they're holding on to you, which you do not want, long before you do. So don't try to hang on to them. Wait until you feel safe. Wait until the shaking has stopped. Get up, protect their paws and yours by sweeping up the floor, try to cover or wipe up spills. Get them into their restraints, okay? Get them into their leashes, their harnesses, their collars, and get them into a place in your home or in their carrier where you can keep them secure. When you feel safe or you see people starting to move out into the street, make sure that they are with you, make sure they're secure, make sure they're confined. This should be part of your practice, part of what you do when you are practicing for an earthquake or for a fire evacuation. You're going to have practiced with them so that you're comfortable putting on that harness, so that you can get them into it without being torn apart by your cat. And then get yourself to a place of safety, okay? Okay. So earthquake. Let's see, what do we have next here? I think we are going to talk about, oh, what is this slide? Oh, this is where, Jeff, give me a hand here. Oh, contact, sorry. We added a few slides for Oakmont. Why is it important if you're an animal owner to get informed and stay informed? Because contrary to common belief, you will get information from our emergency services about animals. Okay, they will post information about where you can go. Of course, you're not going to need that because you're already going to be gone. You will know where to go, but just in case, make sure that you know how to get that information. And next slide is all about probably the single most important page in this workbook. And this is the page that tells you what to do if your pet is not cooperating, if your pet's not following the playbook. Okay, you want to make sure here in Oakmont, you're in the city of Santa Rosa, so you want to make sure that you keep the number for Sonoma County Animal Services and the number for the Sonoma CART hotline with your other emergency numbers. So those numbers that are in your phone or on your emergency plan, so that if your brain goes blank, you have it written down. Your friends and neighbors have that number, because worst case scenario, you can't take your pet with you, you can't get to them, they wouldn't load for your neighbor, and you're inside. Oakmont is under an evacuation order, meaning there's a roadblock and you can only go out, you cannot come in, and the sheriff's knocking at your door. You can get help. We have great resources. I have been one for a number of years. We were able to start the CART in 2019, 2 years after our fires. And those are volunteer resources who, along with animal control officers, come in and do things like search for your animals, check them at home to make sure they're okay, feed and water them, because most of the time animals here at Oakmont, they're going to be fine. They want you guys out of Oakmont. They want the people gone, right? They may use Oakmont as a staging area for emergency services. Your pets, if they couldn't go with you in the first place, they're probably going to be much happier in their own environment. So there are resources that are background checked, safety trained, who can come in. They will look for this information that you have put in a convenient place where responders can find it, okay? And they will feed them, water them. They won't usually clean the cat box. Once in a while we will if we have time. It could happen. But here's the clincher. You must make that call, or somebody that you know who is a trusted resource, a trusted buddy. So there again, the importance of that buddy network. They're going to do all kinds of things for you. So keep that number. Okay, next. I think we're going to talk about shelters. Okay, really quickly, probably not going to apply to anyone here, but you might wonder why my beagle is wearing a muzzle. Here's why. If your dog cannot fit in a carrier, or you are riding public transportation, or, and this also applies to dogs that are service dogs, doesn't fit in a carrier, isn't in a carrier, you're on public transportation, which can include paratransit, or you are temporarily in a shelter that allows pets and people, and that is becoming increasingly common, contrary to popular belief, your dog may be required to wear a muzzle. So this needs to be part of your practice. Buy a muzzle, try it out, find the kind that your dog is happy with and that you are comfortable putting on, and then go fun places with it so he doesn't think that he's being punished every time you put it on, okay? So again, part of that planning and part of that practice, really, really important. And now a little note about service animals. Service animals are canines or mini equines who are trained to perform tasks for people with disabilities. Nobody else, okay? Doesn't matter if you got that cute, cool little jacket from Amazon that says, I'm a service animal. You know who you are. During a disaster, most of the time, most properties like hotels, VRBOs that normally don't allow animals will, but not always. You can't count on it. So it's best, again, to have a list of a number of places you can go, and part of your weather watch and weather warning routine is to call those places up and check, hey, if I needed to get a reservation, could I? Hey, friend, are you going to be home? Or better yet, if you're not home, can I use your home and bring all my animals with me? So that kind of planning, so that you don't have to worry about the muzzle, so you don't have to worry if your dog, your cat is your comfort animal, because in times of stress, they are important. They are providing a service. They are keeping us comforted, right? I wish I could tell you all the stories we're back. Um, Really good idea to have an extra collar, leash, or harness in your supplies with an emergency tag, just in case, okay? They get lost, they fall off, right? And here's an extra important piece. You probably heard that you should have photos of your animals. Really, really good idea. And again, those should be part of that emergency action plan, that information that's in your important documents and stored a bunch of different ways. But you also need to have pictures of you with your animal. I used to usually do this. I'm hitting my microphone. So you with your pet, okay, to prove every way that you can prove that that animal belongs with you, that you belong together. If you have animals who are very vocal, it's also a great idea to get a couple of video clips. Uh-oh, what's going on? Did I miss something? Oh, no. So you're going to have me come back. It's really a ploy. So it's because of all the questions I got beforehand. So really important to have multiple ways to have ID, make sure it's visible, make sure it's updated, and get a video of them talking to you. Let's see, we are just about to the end, which is a good thing. So my next slide here. You know, when I run through this, it takes me 15 minutes, but then I get excited about my audience. Um, let's see. I knew I was going to have trouble today. I was at UC Davis Eye Center a few days ago, and I have not recovered. My eyes have not recovered from that experience, just so you know. Oh,
Julie,
practice, practice, practice. See, redundancy. Because I don't usually include this as a slide because I say it so often. And I think I pretty much covered everything that you're seeing here. Obviously, it's important. Snoopy. Why do I have Snoopy and Woodstock up there? because I love them, because I grew up with them, and because we live here in Santa Rosa where these are our homeboys, right? But they also epitomize everything that we're talking about. Stay calm, be the calm pack leader, flock leader, herd leader, neighborhood leader, family leader. I had to be the calm leader in 2017, and it worked. I have another story about that and how my husband pushed back until 3 weeks later. I heard him telling somebody, she was so calm, she was so focused, she told us exactly what to do. Like, well, in the moment you told me to shut up and stop shouting orders, 40 years of marriage, that was a turning point. And we live to talk about it. But, these guys really do remind us of what is important. And last but definitely not least, I do have a part 2, which I'm not going to get to probably, but I would love to come back and do it. So how do we stay connected? There are lots of ways to connect with Halter Project. Sign up for our mail list. Okay, we don't send out junk. We send out periodic newsletters. They're usually seasonally specific with all kinds of great tidbits that you need to think about. We include things like fun videos, how to put your cat in a pillowcase with a great soundtrack. It's true. We do lots of workshops. So the dog club knows this, Map Your Neighborhood knows this. Even though I was able to talk for probably an hour today about preparedness, there is so much more to say. I hope I answered a lot of the questions that people asked me ahead of time. That is one reason I kind of go on. But we can come do a workshop. We can get hands-on. We can practice putting kitties in pillowcases. I can tell you stories about koi rescue, which was going to be part 2 of my presentation today. Jeff, do we have time to just run that video?
That's exactly where I'm heading. I'll let you know when we're ready.
All right, perfect. So connect with me, all right? It's really easy. I am around. Now, the second part of my presentation, because I thought we might have a lot of people here today who are not pet owners. So I thought that a slideshow, a little bit of information about animal disaster response on the local, state, and national level might be really interesting to people. But toward the end of it, I have a story that brings it right back here to Oakmont. So have me back, and I'll bring in some interesting speakers, and we can really tell you some great stories, very inspiring information about animal disaster response on the large scale. But let me take you back to 2017. So in 2017, it was about 5 o'clock in the morning on the Monday, a week after the fire. I got a phone call from one of those vets that I was telling you about earlier. He said, Jules, wake up Tom, hook up the truck. I'll be there in an hour. We need to go rescue some fish. I said, okay, I better not tell my husband this because I don't think he'll be into fish rescue. So we sheltered in place on our ranch, and we'd been on lockdown by that time for a week. We had no idea it was going to be more than a month. So we had not been out of our neighborhood in Glen Ellen for 8 days. So Dr. Madigan gets there. He is a world-renowned equine veterinarian, professor emeritus at that time at UC Davis. He has a convoy of, I want to say, 5 trucks, and they are all crammed with veterinary students, first-year students, second-year students, third-year students. Students were out of school because the air quality was so bad. He was getting calls from veterinarians and concerned citizens saying, and owners saying, we have koi. Can somebody rescue our koi? Nobody knew what the heck to do with koi. That is why I have a stuffed koi. I have a koi stuffy. There's a reason. Okay. So we convoyed up Sonoma Valley up to the Wallace Ribley area. So basically Rincon Valley, upper Rincon Valley, right through Oakmont. First time we're seeing what everything looks like. We're going, wow. And waved to our friends at Marin Humane, who were during that fire staged at the entrance to Oakmont because they were the mutual aid resource that our county reached out to, and they had your backs. They were here at Oakmont taking care of all your pets, looking after them, making sure that they were okay, making sure they got their meds. Probably they even did clean a few cat boxes and maybe put some newspaper down. Anyway, we get up to Rincon Valley and we go to 3 really incredible, what had been obviously incredible properties with over 20 vet students and a handful of veterinarians and myself, my husband, and 2 other neighbors from the area who had been trying to keep the water fresh in these tanks, trying to fish out deceased fish. And long story short, in the course of about 5 hours, we rescued, we had to stop at the fairgrounds first because we had to fill these tanks up with non-chlorinated water, which the Sonoma County Fairgrounds has from their well. A lot of moving parts. So we fished close to, at that point, it was about 140 fish out of 3 very badly degraded ponds. We then transported them up to UC Davis. That took us almost 4 hours. We couldn't charge our phones. We couldn't do anything because we had everything plugged into bicycle pumps that were keeping these big tanks aerated in the beds of our pickups, okay? Quite an experience. We get to the University of California, Davis, where they have the Center for Aquatic Biology and Aquaculture, where we were met by Dr. Esteban Soto, a world-renowned aquaculture specialist who just happened to grow up in a family that had koi, and he loves koi. So Cabo is a really interesting place. By this time, it was 9 o'clock at night. It was like something out of Area 54, chain link fence, big tanks. We're pulling all these fish out, putting them in these big stainless steel tanks. Fast forward to the middle of December. We're now headed back to Santa Rosa with the first group of fish who are healthy and ready to be reunited with their owners here in Oakmont. Now, they were not rescued from Oakmont. They were rescued from the home that this couple, some of you may recognize them, they were rescued from their pond up in Rincon Valley. The home was completely destroyed. The pond was in terrible shape. The owners had a second home here in Oakmont that had been rented. The renter had moved out, and the owner was in the process of remodeling it, getting it ready for another renter, and now it's where they were going to move to. So with a CBS News team in tow, we were able to make contact with them, arrange to meet them, and they said, well, we can get the pond ready. We don't have a bathroom. We don't have a kitchen. We don't have a place to sleep, but we'll have the pond ready. So the little video you're going to see is that moment in December. So, 2.5 months after the fire, when we're bringing fish from the home that they had lived in and were rescued from in Rincon Valley back to their new home to be reunited with their owners, because people who have koi are just like all the rest of us. They really care about their animals. So that's the setup.
The pond this morning, in fact, I was going to try to get the mosquito fish because you might have mosquito fish in there during the spring and the summer months. All the mosquito fish were gone. I mean, either they died from whatever, but none of them were alive.
No, a lot of them came up in the nets with the koi.
What's that?
A lot of the mosquito fish were in the nets with the koi, so they went up to Davis in the tanks.
Oh, they were?
Yes, and the students were extremely concerned about what would happen to the mosquito fish.
Oh.
And so they were all turned out in an irrigation
okay, so a lot of them
area.
did get, okay.
Oh, yes, a lot of them.
Because I went to get some this morning.
No, there were, I don't know, dozens, if not hundreds, and they all got turned out into an irrigation area just behind
Yeah, my little
Cabo.
grandkids love the mosquito fish as much as they like the koi, I think.
You can hear him say his grandchildren love the mosquito fish as much as the koi. So just a little, snippet of why planning, preparing, and practicing, knowing who to call, having a buddy network, whether it's your neighbor, your relative, the University of California Vet School, the ranchers down the road. It's all part of the big picture, and we can do it. We have done it, and we know we can do it better. And it's up to all of us to convey that and help people who may not have the resources that we have be able to keep their animals safer during and after disasters. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. We've run a little late, so we're going to end it right here. And if you have questions that you
Yes.
need to talk to Julie about, we have a few minutes before we'll vacate the building.
Or I'll be packing up. So
Please come up and talk to her. And thank you very much for coming. For those who are in clubs or running clubs, I believe this Friday is going to be a town hall meeting about insurance here at Berger. So keep your eye open on that. And that's insuring club members. So that'll be, I think, this Friday, Jeff? Tuesday? I have it on there Friday. Okay. So keep your email open if you're running a club so you can go to that meeting. We want to thank Julie for coming in. We have wonderful, in fact, I saw these animals and said they're so realistic, I almost want to take one home. Of course, it would do much better. We want to thank you for coming today. We will see you next week. We'll be talking about snow leopards. So we expect to see every single one of you back here next Sunday. Hope you have a great week. And again, thank you, Julie. We really appreciate your talk today.